Welcome back, everyone. In the last lesson, we covered fundamentals of pricing your bundled services. Now we're going to take things up a notch and explore the art of upselling. Upselling isn't about being pushy or salesy. It's about offering your clients additional value that enhances their experience. When done right, upselling can significantly boost your revenue while making your clients even happier with your services. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a toolkit of effective upselling techniques that you can start using immediately. So, firstly, it's important to understand why upselling works. And for that, we're going to look at some of the key psychological principles here. So, the first one is anchoring. Now, I like to think of anchoring like you're actually anchoring. Let's take example like a big ship in the ocean. If we were looking at a giant ship and you wanted to anchor that ship, let's say it's a big cargo ship, you're going to anchor it in the ocean so it doesn't float around, right? Once that ship is anchored, let's say I wanted to take a little powerboat, and that powerboat's going to come over and it's going to attach itself to this main ship. And now both of those ships are anchored, right? We've got the big one and the tiny one, and those are both still anchored using the main anchor from the giant ship, right? Now that works because the giant ship is anchored and it's got so much anchoring power there that I can attach a whole bunch of other little things to it and it doesn't matter, right? It's not going to float away. Whereas if I take my little powerboat first and I anchor that to the bottom of the ocean, and then I try to bring a giant cargo ship next to that and anchor it by just attaching it to my little powerboat, that's not going to work. Those two boats are going to float away because that ship is just too heavy, right? So when you're anchoring, you need to start with the biggest thing first. Pricing is no different. When we price something and we're anchoring it into somebody's mind, for example, if I'm taking my band and I want to charge $10,000 for my band, let's just say, once somebody is committed in their mind to paying $10,000 for my band, they are anchored to that price. And if I want to sell them an add-on or an upsell of something in addition to that, let's say maybe it's a photo booth or a lighting upgrade or something like that, and that's $500, well, they've already agreed to pay $10,000 for my initial service, so a $500 ask is not that much more. But if I flip that around and I said, well, I sold them the lighting package first, and that only cost $500, and now I'm trying to sell them a band for $10,000, well, they just paid $500 for something. Why would they turn around and suddenly be ready to spend $10,000? Like, that's a huge leap. I'm asking them to spend 20 times more money than off of that first thing they had agreed to buy from me. So when we're talking about anchoring, you want to start with that high price first, and then upselling is lower priced items on top of that, generally speaking. So is how that works. Fear of missing out is a big one as well, right? People don't want to feel like they are missing out on that full experience. And especially if there's a limit to whatever it is you're providing as an upsell, make that known, right? In my case, my band only has one premium light kit we can provide. We don't have extra moving headlights and truss pieces and totems and uplights and all of that. We only have one kit. So if you don't want it and we end up going and selling it to another client that we have that day, you've missed out, right? So that is one of the biggest parts of an upsell as well. And lastly here, trust, right? If they already have trusted you to provide them with that main service that you've sold them, if you've already sold them a $10,000 band package, for example, chances are really highly likely that they're going to trust you to provide more services to them. And in fact, I just asked ChatGPT this before getting on and recording this lesson. I said, how much more likely is it for a customer to buy, an existing customer to buy from you than for you to go and find a new customer and convert them? And it told me that when you've got an existing customer, which you would have if you've already got somebody to buy your band from you, you have a 60 to 70% chance of selling them additional services. Whereas if you were to try to go find a new client from scratch, you've only got about a 5 to 20% chance of converting them on that sale. So way, way, way easier to sell products to existing customers. And that's all upselling is. So if you're not doing this currently, you're probably leaving a ton of money on the table. Go try to sell some additional services to clients because it just works out most of the time. Timing though, timing your upsells is crucial. I would kind of plant seeds for this early on, right? Possibly during that initial consultation, just hinting at things like, we do have better lighting packages we can explore later if you want to get into that, but totally not essential, no pressure, right? Just kind of plant the seeds that you can do more, but don't spill all the beans right away. after they've initially booked you is kind of when you want to start thinking about getting into upsells. So at that point, they're committed, right? They've anchored to that larger price. They've stomached needing to pay that amount, whatever it is they're going to need to pay, and they're committed. So that is a great time to start reaching out and thinking about upselling. Another opportunity could be 1 to 2 months before the event, right? As excitement builds, their budget's now finalized. They are aware of how much money they're going to spend, and if there's any left to blow, at that point they're often really open to upgrades, right? So a good thing to think about there. As a pro tip, you guys, I would say always frame your upsells as ways to enhance the client's vision for their own event, not just ways to spend more money, right? So for an example, clients often have a color scheme that can be enhanced with a lighting package, right? So if their color is pink and you can sell them an uplight package that ensures that their walls have a pink splash and that the band will be backlit with pink too, well, you've just enhanced their vision of their event, right? And that kind of stuff is excellent. All right, so what are some effective upselling techniques? Well, we have the good, better, best method. This is a pretty common method you'll read about. It's where we take 3 options and we position them so that the middle option is kind of the one we expect most people to get. And then we've also got a sort of a better choice on top of that. And then we've got one down below for kind of the cheaper types or people looking for a deal, right? So you've kind of got something in here for everybody, but it should be kind of a no-brainer as to what people should get as well. So you'll often see this if you're shopping around online for different softwares or things like that. They'll have a menu. It looks sort of like a menu. Well, they'll have 3 columns, and the middle one's kind of highlighted and stands out a little bit. And they're like, this is the best choice, or this is popular, or they'll have some kind of little label tag on it. You can do that when you're setting up these packages and sending your clients a little menu to choose from as well. But as an example here, back from my last lesson where we looked at bundling all of our services, I might call my basic sound system or the minimum viable rig there, I might call that my good package, right? That's the bottom of the line, $1,200. Up from there, we get better. We have everything that was in that basic sound system or the minimum viable rig, plus now we've added on ceremony and cocktail sound systems, and that's just a few $100 more. But if you really want to splurge and get the best option out there, go for the best package here, which includes all the sound system stuff we've just talked about, plus this premium lighting package for extra ambience and effect throughout your event. And now that's almost about another $1,000 on top of that. So we've got something in there for everyone. Another technique is the add-on technique. So maybe with this, you have just your base price, your band that just includes a basic sound system. Maybe you've got a few options instead for like different performance lengths. But then once that's been booked and the client's set on that, then you start pitching them add-ons. And you can say, hey, look, we've got the ceremony sound system you could do. We've got a custom monogram projection you could do. We've got uplighting for the reception space. And so all of those can be sort of siloed out into their own little compartments, and people can just add them like they would a side order at their favorite burger restaurant or something, right? As a pro tip, though, I will say always explain the benefits of each add-on, right? If you're just saying something like uplighting for the reception space, $400, I'm like, well, what does that even mean, right? You'll want to include a little description with that, like uplighting can completely transform the ambience of your reception space, making it feel more intimate and elegant, right? And be aware as well that making too many add-ons available will inevitably confuse your clients, right? And a confused client often ends up putting off the decision and ultimately choosing nothing at all, which doesn't help your bottom line either, right? So I would say as a general rule of thumb, I mean, when you start getting above 3 add-ons, things start getting kind of confusing for people, right? So if you've got like 25 add-ons, consider bundling those together and making like an add-on package or something where it's like one add-on package is that premium lighting package. Another one is your premium uplights or your premium smoke package. I don't even know what, right? But don't make too many choices for your client or they will just be confused and they will walk away. And like I said, because you've got to prepare a little statement for each one as well, a little value statement there, imagine how long and how much text this would be. If I had 25 different add-ons and each one of them had a 1 or 2 sentence description, now I've got to read a book just to figure out what add-ons I've got available from you, right? So that's a great way to lose a sale. Another technique here is visualization. So helping clients visualize the impact of those upgrades using photos, videos, and even live demonstrations, right? If you have a warehouse or a large rehearsal space that you can leave your lighting rig set up in or your sound system set up in, and you can invite your clients down there and say, hey, come sample our sound systems and our lighting. that would be amazing. But short of that, before and after photos can be really effective, or before and after videos, right? For my lighting rig in my band, what we like to do is have an initial video that shows just the basic lighting, the 2 wash lights with an effects light on the dance floor. And we show the band performing with that. And then all of a sudden it cuts to our full lighting rig with all of the totems behind the band and the uplighting and the movers and the smoke and the uplights and everything in there. And it's just so much more impactful that as soon as people see that, it's like, whoa, night and day difference. They can really quickly compare those two and decide that, in fact, yes, the premium package is a much better option. Another idea I had here too for you guys I wanted to share is possibly even showing a video of like an audience member's perspective in the back row of a wedding ceremony. And the reason I say this is because a lot of wedding couples I've worked with have said things like, oh, we want our ceremony to be really intimate. And so we don't want a microphone and cables to trip on and things like that. It's going to be small and intimate. And so no amplification needed. And I'm like, okay, well, take a moment and think about that. Where's your wedding ceremony, right? Oh, there's this beautiful, we're on a beautiful golf course and there's this nice water feature and there's some nice trees nearby and it's all out in the open. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, if a gust of wind comes up, all those trees are going to rustle. That can make actually quite a bit of noise outside, right? Have we got birds flying around? The water feature, is it a fountain? Will that be making noise? If it is, that can be quite loud. It's a golf course, meaning there's nothing around there. Planes could be flying overhead. Those get quite noisy. I was doing a wedding ceremony once where float planes kept flying overhead. They can only fly a few hundred feet above the ground. They are really loud when they come close. And we had tour buses driving by and their tires and brakes were all screechy. So competing with the background noise of the environment you're in can actually be quite loud. And when you're trying to sell these ceremony and cocktail sound system add-ons, that can be really helpful information to bring up to your client, just to say something like, well, I know you want it to be intimate, but if you don't want it to exist at all, that's another thing. But if your guests are going to be there, they probably want to hear your vows and your speeches and your officiant. And if you got a video from the back row's perspective of just like turning on and off the sound system in the middle of a speech, so you could show that person how quiet it actually gets in the back row when there is no amplification on a voice, that would be a really effective way to sell your sound system upgrades there. All right, another option here is the limited time offer. So this is where you create a sense of urgency by offering a special upgrade for a limited time. For example, if you had our premium light package today, we'll include a custom monogram projection at no extra charge. I would caution with this one, of course, use this technique sparingly and always be honest, right? False scarcity can really damage trust. So if there's really no reason that you're only offering this lighting package today, don't say that, right? People are going to be like, well, why can I only get this today? Can I talk to my wife and get it tomorrow? And you're like, well, yeah, I guess so. Then they're like, okay, well, everything this guy says is not really real. So it's just going to, damage the trust that they felt for you. So don't abuse that. But one really helpful sidebar on this, I would say, is like, in my case, like I mentioned earlier, that lighting package that my band has, we only have one of those, right? So I can tell people, hey, look, I could send them an email and say, I had some really great ideas for enhancing your event. Wanted to share these with you. We've just built this new lighting package. It looks totally stunning. Here's a video link. Check it out. By the way, we only have one of these rigs, and I wanted to give you guys the first right of refusal because we're already playing at your wedding and it just makes sense. Obviously, I have a vested interest in making your wedding totally awesome, but we do have some other clients that day because we do other sound for other bands as well. And if you guys don't want this, we would like to sell it to somebody else that day. So we understand you probably need some time to think about this, but if you could let me know by Friday, that would be great. If I don't hear back from you by the weekend, I'll just assume you didn't want it, no harm done, and I'll go pitch it to somebody else and try to get it sold somewhere else. But I did want to offer this to you guys first. That way they feel respected and they're like, oh my God, he was thinking about us. He wants our wedding to be the most amazing one that day. This package does look amazing and they are giving us a discount. It's like all the boxes are checked. That decision is just going to be a no-brainer for them. So use that. All right. Overcoming objections. Obviously, when you're selling, people do object sometimes. So here are some common ones that I just sort of brainstormed in here for you guys. Obviously it's too expensive thing. Well, one way you could break that down for people is just to show them, hey, look, for just $2 more per guest, you can have a completely transformed reception space, right? If you were selling that uplight package, for example. Putting it into perspective like that can help sometimes, because a lot of these events, clients are paying $120, $150, $200 per guest just for food, right? Food is crazy expensive in some of these places. So when you're like, you're already spending that much more, what's another $2 per guest just to have this space completely transformed? Not a huge investment, right? But they might say, oh, we don't need it. Well, in that case, emphasize the experiential value here, right? Maybe if you've got a client testimonial to use here, you could say, many couples tell us that the lighting was what their guests remembered most about the reception, or whatever it is you're trying to sell, right? If they say something like, hey, we're just trying to keep things really simple, you might highlight how your services actually do simplify their planning. By bundling everything together, you're actually simplifying your planning process and reducing your stress, right? As a sidebar here, I would say these are really great things to include as a footer in your email. There's a good chance when you reach out to do upsells with your clients, you're going to be sending them an email, right? When you do that, you can present whatever it is you're trying to upsell to them. And then in the footer, put a little frequently asked questions section right under there and address some of the common objections and concerns that you would expect to receive from clients when they're considering that add-on. So in that way, you're kind of addressing people's concerns and objections before they've even asked them of you, and maybe before they've even thought of them. So if they take the time to read through that list, they might actually address some of their own concerns before they even arise. All right, so let's talk follow-up strategies, right? You've got some great ideas for upsells. You've got some great ideas on how to work them into your flow here, but when do you actually do that? So one way would be to send an email a week after the initial consultation, or a week after they've kind of booked you possibly, with some ideas you've had for enhancing their event, right? We're not trying to just say, hey, I got something else I could sell you guys. Like, no. These are ideas you had for enhancing their event. You want them to think that you're being thoughtful and you're thinking about their event, which you are, and you've got some great ideas on how to maybe make it better. They will actually appreciate that. Another thing is you could check in a month before the event to see if they want to add any finishing touches, right? If you've got uplights or any little things like that you could just sort of tag on at the last minute that doesn't really make your life super complicated, but that could really enhance their event, that would be a great time to do that. And then sharing success stories is a big one here as well, right? If you've got client testimonials, you can throw into the mix when you're doing that outreach. Say, hey, I had some ideas for your event. Maybe it's this cool lighting and haze package that we do, and this other client bought it last week, and here's what they had to say about it. That can really help make your case for that. And as a final note here, silence does not mean no. So be politely persistent through this process, right? Especially in the wedding industry. I always find if I'm dealing with a bride and groom, or a couple, they aren't necessarily, and in most cases probably are not, professional wedding planners, right? They've maybe got a couple hours every weekend to put into planning their event around their regular lives and day jobs, right? So it takes them a long time to put all these details together. And if you're sending them an email and you don't hear back a week later, don't assume that means no. Follow up again. And one of my favorite techniques is to, after that initial week, I'd send them a follow-up email and say something like, hey, Sherry, just wanted to bring this email back up in your inbox. Don't know if you've had a chance to think about this yet, but would really love to hear back from you. And then as soon as I hit send on that email, I'll pick up my phone and send them a direct text message saying something like, hey, I just sent you an email. I don't know if it accidentally went to your spam. Just wanted to make sure you got it. Right? And that way you're sending a very unassuming text message that comes across very friendly, lets them know that you're trying to contact them, but that will be much more likely to get a response and get them viewing that email. You don't know. Maybe it did go to their spam, or maybe they are just busy, or maybe they don't actually want it. But in either case, you're not making an assumption. You're not showing up as a grumpy guy trying to make a sale. It actually it feels nice, and it makes them feel appreciated and that you are thinking about them. Awesome. Guys, so key takeaways from this lesson. Effective upselling really is about enhancing the client's experience, not just increasing your revenue, right? So make sure you're communicating that in all of your upsell opportunities. Use visual aids and demonstrations to help clients understand the value of your upgrades. Testimonials as well can be great there. And then, of course, timing. Timing is crucial. Know when to present upsell options for the maximum impact. All right, guys, so as a learning activity from this one, I want you to go and create a list of at least 5 potential add-ons or upgrades that you can offer with your current equipment, right? And put them into one of those categories. Are these add-ons? Are they visual add-ons? Are you going to use the good, better, best method? Pick one of those. Don't use them all. Pick one of those that that resonates with you and that works with your products, and go with that. And then of course, write a brief 2 or 3 sentence pitch for each add-on, focusing on the benefit to the client. Lastly, and I will sidebar and say AI can be really helpful with this stuff as well. If you're maybe not the biggest word nerd out there and you're struggling to put together pitches that convey emotion and quality and all of that good stuff, try AI. It can be really helpful with this. Lastly, practice overcoming objections by either role-playing with a bandmate or friend, possibly even the mirror. Have them present common objections while you practice your responses. And of course, as you do that, maybe you'll come up with more objections, or maybe your friends or bandmates will, and you can even boil those into your frequently asked questions section, plug those into your email templates, and so on. All right, so what's next? Well, great job on mastering upselling techniques, everyone. In our next lesson, Positioning Your Services, we'll explore how to market yourself as a full-service entertainment provider. You'll learn how to leverage your expertise in both performance and production to stand out in a crowded market. Get ready to elevate your brand and attract some high-value clients, guys. See you in the next lesson.